This is sick. This is sick. And what is up, Rad Potential YouTube? Welcome to today's video. Four-rotor oil pan and slide throttle bodies are coming back and ready to get put back on the four-rotor FD street car. And check this thing out. So, hand-built oil pan. Let me explain some things. This front sump up here, if you didn't see the last video, the front sump piece is literally just to clear the pickup tube. So this engine has an extended pickup tube that basically looks just like a three-rotor pickup tube, but it's longer to go to the back. The rear sump is where the pickup tube goes, and these two sumps are not connected. Literally, it's just a flat plate in there. So y'all be like, especially the guy I took this to get the drain plugs welded in, he's like big block Chevy LS guy. He's like, where's the oil go? How does the oil get from up here to back here? Well, when you have your rotors and housings sitting through here, there's space under the housings for oil to go from the front to the back. The only thing that sucked was that we couldn't drain this in its original situation, so now we've got a drain plug at the front, nice little -6 ORB, and then we've added a -10 ORB back here. So it had an NPT plug in it right here, but I was struggling to get the NPT plug to not leak oil. Literally, it just dripped on my floor all the time, no matter how much sealant I guess just wasn't getting it clean enough. However, now it is cleaned, sealed shut, should not leak at all, and we have a nice O-ringed drain plug now on the side, which I can't loosen my hand to show you. So what I've also done is I dry fit this pan back on the bottom of the engine. All of these holes, the whole pan is basically cut out by hand, so it is, you know, it's hand built. It's a little bit crude in the likes of looking at something that was cut out on like a laser or a CNC. But with that being said, there was a few of the holes that were a little tight. So I put this back on loosely, marked all the holes, made sure we're going to have all sorts of space, bolting this thing back on under the car. I'm going to go ahead and get this bolted on the car, and then we're going to take a look at these fancy schmancy slide throttles after we've polished them up so they look mirror-like, chrome, so you can see yourself. So let's throw this on. So I've wiped this down probably 42 times since the oil pan's been off for a couple weeks. It's been sitting here draining oil all over my floor. But what that means is that oil is not in the engine currently. So we have a nice, clean, dry surface to put our silicone on to seal this thing up. Unfortunately, there isn't a four-rotor oil pan gasket, so we just have to glue it on to the best of our ability. So we're going to come in here, and I got the cheater silicone where you don't have to squeeze it. You just kind of floor it and it comes out. We're going to lay a nice bead. All right. Now that we have our silicone on there, it's important to not put too much of this on. It may look like I put a ton of silicone on here to seal this up, which it's probably an adequate amount. But is that you don't put oil in it right away. We're going to get the pan up here, get it loosely, like snugged down till we just barely start to see silicone start poking out basically everywhere. And we'll let it set up for 10 minutes or so and then tighten it down a little bit more. More silicone will start to squeeze out, and then it'll start to seal up. At least on this one, I guess it sucks that there's not an excessive amount of baffles in this, but normally on like an FD pan, there's a lot of baffles under here, and it becomes a pain to do this in the car and fit it around the subframe. So I've got two studs here that are going to help me line this up, and we're going to put that thing up in there. Get it nice and straight as best we can. Hold it snug and tight. I should have put the bolts closer. So the engine mounts go on through the oil pan, which is kind of inconvenient. It's typical of your FD and FC RX-7s. So get these full function engineering, super beautiful pieces put on here. Nice billet. Get all the bolts going. Pretty stoked. There we go. There we go. Okay, stay. Now I get to line the engine mounts up and get this behemoth of an engine hoist out of the way. So it hasn't been sitting on this for 2 weeks, guys. It's literally had a jack stand under it. This thing likes to, you'll hear it creaking and moaning in the background. It kind of seeps and falls down over time. So don't ever trust your engine hoist. Always put something else under your car. I've got the slide throttles all polished up. You can see, check out that nice mirror-like finish in there. I polished both the slide itself, both sides, and the inside of this aluminum casing here in order to take some material off, get all the roughness out of it, and make this thing a lot smoother to actuate. One thing that is crazy is that, albeit it did help a ton, it still just barely hangs up just a smidge. I'm hoping that the pedal will make it just a little bit easier, being, it's a little bit of leverage on your foot. It is a little easier to push the pedal than the actual, actuate the slide right here. But it's 1,000 times better than it was. I don't know if it's going to be 100%, but we're going to find out. What I showed you before I put it on, the TPS and the return spring were on it. I was holding it in front of the camera, moving it back and forth, working pretty well. I bolt it to this, and now this is it's like super draggy. Okay? And it wasn't draggy at first. It was pretty good. And then after I, went in there and started whomping on the throttle a bunch of times just to, what you're going to do when you're revving it at a car show or something, wop, 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 it just started getting real draggy really fast. And it's worse, way worse than it was before. I was having a thought, too, which you guys can comment below on this. Comment below. So do you think that the slide being at an angle is affecting the amount of friction on the inside of the slide versus if this slide was sitting perfectly flat right here and just riding on the needle bearings? Maybe that's my issue. So let's just go straight for it. The simply taking it off, free it up. No. Hopefully you can feeling it dragging. Splitting this apart, there's a mark right here on the end of the slide itself, which moves perfectly free, just like this. That's just a grease line. And this mark coincides with this nicely scratched groove right through my polished surface here. I don't know why that's there, considering I cleaned all of this out, blew it all out with air, put the whole thing back together, took it back apart, blew it out with air again, checked everything over, moved it back and forth a bajillion times, and we still have this line right here. Definitely like a piece of dirt or this, or what's happening is whenever I crank it down, which I'm not really tightening it that tight, just barely past hand tight with the, if you're using an Allen key with the short end, just snug it up and then maybe 1/8 of a turn long ways, so it's not that tight. Maybe when I tighten it down, it's like flexing this and warping it. That flange over there, we did weld to it, and it is like 1/2 inch thick aluminum, so it could get warped a little bit from that. But that with that really thick gasket in there, it doesn't have to pull it that tight to make it up. The warp isn't going to warp this that much because that thick paper gasket. So the gasket absorbs, the wave. I don't know. This is very interesting though, because like you just saw in the pictures, that line definitely wasn't there. But something's mad at something. So I didn't go to the extent to polish this all the way down and get every single line and scratch out of this, just to get all the major rough edges off of everything. So it looks like I got to do some repolishing right here, sand that groove back out, sand this down a little bit, and then put it back together and see what we got. Don't really see any other witness marks, so we can look up under this one. Underneath that all looks good. And here's that Delrin I was telling you about on the bottom here, which I put some grease on, so it should be fine. But it's just a rather interesting design. I really think those bearings, I'm gonna put them all in there, you set them all to one side, right? And you tighten this thing down. I really think they just move back and forth, and then they end up finding a spot in there, and then it kind of just slides in the little needle spin inside the thing, versus the whole unit actually sliding that whole carriage of bearing around. I don't know, it's interesting. Oh, to have x-ray vision and see what's going on inside of things would be super nice. Ready to fire up the four-rotor. If y'all remember, in the last video, the little Haltech can gauge wasn't working. I had a CAN bus setting wrong in the ECU. I guess the Nexus has 2 CAN bus outputs, and I didn't have them assigned correctly. So it was thinking it was CAN from one CAN versus the other CAN. So anyways, now we're right. We got the oil pressure warning coming up because we have 0 oil pressure right now because the engine's not running. And then I can cycle through. Coolant temperature 62 degrees, which is basically what it is in the shop right now. We can see everything else. So we're ready to fire this thing up. The throttle pedal does feel like maybe 10% better. I can like kind of modulate the throttle under 10%. So, which with these big old 54mm throttle bodies, it's like, it's a lot. So let's fire this thing up. It's been a minute since we started it. We've got oil in it. I topped off the coolant. Still have a teeny tiny drip of an oil leak, so I gotta track that down, but like it hasn't even dripped off the pan yet. I can just see a little spot. I am curious if there's like a pinhole in one of the welds up higher on the pan. That was then tripping me out why the why the drain plug was leaking too. Might have been the same thing. We'll find out. But let's smoke the shop out, huh? And honestly too, like, okay, it's just as smoky. I'm just curious why it's so smoky. It's only got 1 ounce per gallon premix in it now. I pulled the premix ratio down. We've driven it obviously a decent amount. And it doesn't have billet plates. One of the things when you run billet rotary engine plates, the aluminum soaks up a lot of oils. Thus, you do get a little bit more of a smoky engine. But it's all stock stuff. Look at the bumper moving. I don't have the under tray on, so I can check for leaks, monitor everything. V-bands are exhaust tick leaking a little bit. I think we're good on leaks though, so I'm going to put this back on the ground. It's just going to have another tape measure alignment in it, so we'll see how it steers and drives. Ideally, we're not going to drive it too far. The one thing that sucks about having to pull that oil pan off is I had to take the subframe out, which then takes all your alignment specs and throws them out the window. Guess I could have marked where I had it from the last one, but... Dang it. Gotta take the park brake off. Good thing it's not low compression and it fires right up every time. It'd suck if this was like a RX-8 and you had to wait 20 minutes if you stall it. So the whole point of this video is to start getting some break-in miles on the four-rotor FD. You saw I went ahead, polished the slides up. I'm trying to get this thing more drivable. So I want the throttle to be easier to operate because right now, like the whole taking off slowly isn't really a thing. That and the amount of precision I have to, oh, there you can feel it. The amount of precision you need to get it off the line is like, you're pushing the throttle pedal a millimeter, and you can already feel it starting to buck and kick like a Bridgeport car too. So we're back with like the full air cleaner, everything's back on the car, and like it's just going to be a lot of a race engine in this thing, which we know. get some break-in miles on it, so we're gonna take it for a lap. Make sure everything's going well, make sure everything's doing okay. My tape measure alignment is really terrible, so it's a little bit darty, but we gotta get it over to the dealership and get it properly aligned. But I think we should be to the last time I have to take the subframe out, so, which means we can actually align it. I may try to lower the idle as well. I think I can adjust the idle screw down. So here's the drivability. Right now we're basically idling. I'm giving it slight throttle. I'm trying to take off slow. There it goes. So just that little stutter. And it's not a stutter from the tune, guys. It's a stutter from me not being able to push the throttle pedal smoothly. Man, this thing sounds so good though. Do a little blipper downshift. Oh. So I raised the rev limiter to 5,000 from 4,000. Logan says 5,000 for 500 miles, so we're gonna do 500 miles. We're currently at about mile, I don't know, 70 or so. The crazy thing about this four-rotor though is at 2,000 RPM, it doesn't quite pull like an LS7, but it pulls pretty dang good. Downshift though, it's so crispy. God, this thing sounds amazing. Woo. Nobody on this road has ever heard one of these before in their entire life. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. This old guy sitting on the porch. Right about there, he's going to his wife. What in the F1 car crap is that? Coolant temp's good. Oil pressure 100. Nailed it. This thing's gonna be fast too. Woo. If only y'all could feel the level of white knuckle I have on this steering wheel right now, and we're not even like full chip ripping. It's just the fact that this is a four-rotor FD RX-7. It's literally the most valuable, crazy, wild car I've ever driven, or built, or worked on, or turned or wrenched on, or even, I guess, there's some pretty gnarly cars at Cars and Coffee and car shows and stuff. Like there was a carbon fiber Pagani Zonda R once, but I would still place this. I don't know, that Zonda's pretty cool. But this thing's wild. It just doesn't drive like an RX-7. One, because the alignment's terrible, so this thing's darting all over the road. But two, because it actually has torque. Do a little second. Might need to add a little bit of some acceleration enrichment. Oh, there's that sticky throttle. Second gear to 5K. Yeah, this thing sounds amazing. We're not even really revving it that hard yet. throw drive-by-wire on this car and I could set up the auto blip downshifts, that would be crispy. God, this thing sounds amazing. Like I'm in Forza or Gran Turismo, whichever PlayStation or Xbox console you play, or iRacing if you're on PC. But like, we still have all the rattles of a normal 1994 Mazda RX-7. Like, this thing is no, you know, outlier of mintness, which is super nice, but FDs are just a little rattly. But you never get in an FD RX-7 and feel like you're driving a 787B. Alright, let's do a little 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. Oh, man. This is sick. This is sick and stressful. Downshift a second again, we'll do a pull. I swear I'm probably only giving this thing like 30% throttle. Okay, maybe I was giving it 50. God, this thing sounds so good. The power delivery is super smooth too, guys. Like, you know, it's a rotary, it's rotational motion making more rotational motion, so you don't get any vibrations really. But man, this thing is sick. Oh, we got oversized load coming. Should we give this trucker a nice proper downshift? Oh yeah, they're jealous. Man, this thing is sick. That's all you're gonna want to do, Johnny, is just slow down, because it's, you know, like gnarly ported anyways. It doesn't really cruise, so you just slow down a good bit, downshift to third, and then just take off again. I'll say this though, these Indiana roads are a lot rougher than them roads in Tennessee, and these old ones still do a really good job. Man, I don't really know what other emotions to convey, guys. This is like the most badass, stressful experience you could ever have as somebody who's put together a good bit of fast cars, but never one that's like this gnarly. This would be like building your first $200,000 Lamborghini engine and then starting it for the first time and hoping it doesn't blow up. Sick. One of these days maybe we'll put hood struts on here, but for now this titanium hood prop is super rad. Alright guys, back from the test drive, or at least a good bit of driving today. I did 3 laps of what you saw the 1 lap of, plus some flybys back and forth on that road. Pretty stoked with how this thing has come together. It's exactly what I anticipated or really wanted it to be, aside from the throttle pedal being super heavy. So it's sort of streetable in its current form, but honestly, that like it just has this breakover point in the throttle where it getting off idle is kind of a pain. I've talked about it the whole video, but that's literally my only complaint. I tend to enjoy driving fully ported, gnarly rotaries on the street. They don't really make me like I guess I'm not that much of an old man yet where I don't mind the bucking and the kicking, and I kind of drive around it and get used to it. So this car is definitely more drivable than my full Bridgeport 12A used to be. The 12A just bucked and kicked and tried to knock your teeth out, and it was gnarly. But this, with the four-rotor torque, the fact that you have more spark firing happening per revolution of the eccentric shaft, you got 4 rotors now versus just 1. It really kind of smooths out as much as it is, you know, gnarly and choppy and brappy. So I'm super pumped, guys. This thing, it's not quite ready to just give it back to Johnny and Melinda and let them drive it for the summer and then bring it back up here and do some more work to it over the winter. We're going to change a few things around, I believe, but other than that, it's looking really good. I'm pretty pumped. It's holding its oil, it's holding its water, it's not overheating. You know, they're not planning on taking this thing to the racetrack, guys. So, like, the extent of probably what you saw me driving it, you know, just add 2,000 RPM to that. That's probably the hardest it's going to get driven. It's not going to get back to back to back, you know, roll race, interstate pulls. It's like, get in the car, rip it on the interstate, rip it into town, do that, drive it around, enjoy the car. That's the whole goal of this car. It's not something that's the typical YouTuber four-rotor build, which is like gnarly race engine, dry sump, you know, battling oil pressure issues and overheating issues and all that stuff. So this is just, we need it to street. That's the goal. Street, comfort. And I can tell you this much, which I'm sure y'all heard it from the outside of the car clips. This thing is loud. It's not that bad in the car, cruising at 3,000 RPM, but it is loud. Just hearing it echo through the tree tunnel. Man, I cannot wait to follow this thing at Tail of the Dragon, or just follow it around anywhere. Here, most of the time, when you build a car, your own car, right? Most of us work on our own cars. You never hear it from the outside because you don't like trust your friends to drive your car, right? So you don't like, here, just go drive my 700 horsepower RX-7 and let me stand on the side of the road and watch you not run into a crowd of people and me get to listen to it. So I can't wait to get to listen to this from the outside because it's one of the cool things about kind of helping Johnny and Richard and other guys working on cars for my friends is I get to hear what I've built get used, and that's super fun. It's super fulfilling as somebody who enjoys, you know, the artistry of putting cars together. Because as much as, you know, art class and doing paintings and stuff is kind of interpreted as a totally different stereotype from a car guy, in reality, guys, we're out here putting stickers and wheels and painting our cars and changing engines. Like, this might as well just be a painting. You know, they called that S15 in Tokyo Drift the Mona Lisa for a reason, right? I don't know if we could call this the Mona Lisa, but we could find some other painting of some other person to call it, but dang, it looks good. So, with that, guys, I'm going to leave you off here. I'm going to drive this thing around. We're going to film another video on is a four-rotor RX-7 streetable. I'm probably not going to be able to exceed 5,000 RPM in the duration of that video just because we're still working on breaking this thing in. I got to drive it. We got to see how it's going to hang. In addition to the four-rotor stuff, okay, there's a whole lot of things coming on the channel. Bunch of stuff is fixing to happen. If you're here for the four-rotor, I just finished up my hybrid RX-8, RX-7 engine. Okay, that engine, hybrid Renesis, is going to go in the yellow car. The comments on the last video were astounding, telling me it should just go in the yellow car. Why not put it in the yellow one? The red RX-8 that I went to look at to potentially buy was just a nightmare. It wasn't, you know, it was worth my time because I was in the area, but it wasn't worth any effort to necessarily buy it. So that's that. In addition to the hybrid project, the patrons know about the next big project, which is involving 2 cars that are on the other side of this whole building over here that I've been hiding from you guys. And you guys will have to either, 1, subscribe to the Patreon and go check it out over there, or 2, just wait for that stuff to come out. The rally car and the Radix 7, it's been a minute since you guys have probably seen the rally car. I haven't posted a rally video because we're just cranking through the rotary content. That's what the YouTube algorithm loves right now. It's what you guys are enjoying watching, so that's what I'm uploading. The rally videos will come, though, from this year. We'll do one for the whole rally season, or they'll drop later in the year. But don't worry. Southern Ohio Forest Rally, Oregon Trail Rally were amazing. The car survived fantastically. We had a slight off at Southern Ohio, but you know, car's in one piece. We just had to get towed out, so we lost a little bit of time, but no big deal. And if you've noticed, my parts wall, we've started accumulating more parts for the project that the Patreons know about. So go check out the Patreon. It'd be much appreciated for you guys' support. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching these videos. Thank you guys so much for commenting, liking the video. Tell me what you want to see us do with the four-rotor. We'll keep driving it, keep enjoying it. That's the whole goal. Sharing the experience of all these cool cars with you guys. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Keep it rad. Dang. It still is, like, you know, mentioned in the video, a little bit surreal to drive a four-rotor, but a little bit stressful to be driving this particular four-rotor because we're still figuring it out, making sure everything's working. But it's still surreal to see this in here. Also, I peeled the Haltech stickers off the coils, and it looks 4 million times better without the yellow stuff in there. This just looks like a nice, pleasantly could-be stock FD right here. If you didn't have another FD parked next to it, you'd just be like, oh, look, it's got an upgraded thermostat cover, it's got an upgraded intake, and an upgraded header. Otherwise, it's like, presents basically stock, which I love. Peace, guys.